Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It is indeed a happy Monday, and I'm joined by Kevin Graham. We should also be joined at some point by Acsom Rabbani as well, Kev. And I'm going to have to put it out there, and we will obviously bow to public opinion. We're going to ask the question, shall we break ranks? Because Acsom does have an unwritten rule, which is that we don't speak about teams we're not playing that week. Should we break ranks and discuss two sides who faced each other yesterday? Kevin, I'm going to ask you first. Should we talk about the Scottish Cup game? Look at the backdrop.
I was just about to say the big fellas broke ranks. The big fellas already broke ranks.
It looks like he's part of that celebration there.
Part of the team. I know.
That's sensational. That is sensational. Yes, we're going to break ranks. Yes, we're going to get it right up them. But before we do that, gentlemen, a big well done to our friends at Queen's Park. Yes, our friends at Queen's Park who assisted massively when we were tasked with getting a ex-Celtic team together to play St Roch's in their centenary game a couple of Octobers ago. So a big shout out to our pals Jim and Willie and also Jerry Crawley. Now, a lot of people may not be aware that Jerry Crawley's on the committee at Queen's Park. He started off at Celtic as a ground staff boy under the guidance of a certain Neely Mockin, and he was one of that team who came through with Charlie Nicholas, and he's now at Queen's Park. And of course, Adam Montgomery. Acsom, did you watch the game yesterday? Were you able to keep an eye on the events at Ibrox yesterday?
I was watching the Plymouth Liverpool game, and then once that finished, I switched over. It was actually only when you messaged in the group chat with the yes, and then I was like, right, something must have happened at Ibrox. So I think from about the 70th minute onwards, I started watching it, and just as the time went on, I was like, they're going to do this. And then, lo and behold, obviously the referees did everything in their power to prevent it, which just made it all the more funnier. But yeah, I managed to catch the end of it, and then watched all the aftermath, and then watched it on repeat, and then watched the highlights last night. And I'll be looking forward to the phone-ins tonight. So yeah, it's been a brilliant 20. I was going to say it's been a brilliant 24 hours, but it's been a brilliant weekend in general. Obviously, Celtic brilliant on Saturday. And then our Glasgow buddies yesterday doing us all a favour as well. So brilliant stuff.
You've been drinking it in. I'll tell you something, social media can be a horrible, toxic place, Kev. But on nights like last night, it's like, when do you go to bed? You just keep getting better memes and video content from other podcasters, etc. Phenomenal yesterday. And by the way, when you look at Queen's Park, right, what I would say is we've not really focused on them a great deal over the last couple of years, but we've kept an eye on them, Kev, because we know some of the hard work that's getting done behind the scenes there. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was invited into Off the Ball before the Scottish Cup final against Inverness Cali Thistle. Angie's last game in charge, it was actually, and they were talking about Queen's Park. That cropped up as a point of discussion, Kev. And the suggestion was, they're chucking money at it. That was a suggestion at the time. But I had to say, at that point, that I had been up and looked at the setup at Queen's Park. I'd looked at what they were doing with youth development, what they were doing with data when it came to recruitment. And I was very, very impressed with the way that they had that all lined up. Obviously, Owen Coyle was very unlucky not to get them out of the championship. I think they were one game away from getting promoted to the Premiership. He's obviously left and they brought in Callum Davidson. But this isn't just an anomaly. This isn't a one-off. They've been working on this, and they've had the promotions from the bottom tier of Scottish football, Kev, right up to the Championship. The next step, you would think it would be coming at the Premiership, which would be incredible for a club that was an amateur club until recently.
I mean, what you're trying to say there, that Off the Ball has ill-informed and poor opinions on Scottish football. I'm so really surprised at that.
It was ill-informed, Kev. It was just like, looking from the inside, looking at it, say, they're chucking money at it. But when you actually looked at the infrastructure that Queen's Park had put in place, it was all geared to what they looked at the model, and I've spoken about this before. They looked at the model of Partizan Belgrade, because Partizan Belgrade have got a tremendous record of producing youth players, selling the players on, making the club money, making it sustainable. And they looked at that as an example, and they're now getting the fruits of their labour, Kev.
I mean, I think the Owen Coyle thing, I think that was too soon for them. I think if they would have got promoted, it probably would have took the wheels off the bus a wee bit, because it was too quick for them. And
not quite strong enough.
I know,
when it came up.
And where they are just now is probably right for what they want to do. I mean, cup upsets. We've been. It's a generational result for Rangers. We've had a few in the last. We've obviously had the embarrassment of getting beat off Rangers when they were a championship team. Then we had the embarrassment of even the semi-final. We've had a few semi-final defeats. Then you've had the infamous or the famous Super Cali Go Ballistic Celtic are atrocious, which has now been reclaimed fantastically by a horrible newspaper. But it's a generational result, and I think that's why we're finding it funny, because it was that unexpected. I can go back to '86 and Adrian Sprott. I remember
Hamilton Academical. I remember.
I was watching Bannockburn Amateurs, and somebody says Rangers have just got put out with the Scottish Cup with Hamilton Accies. And it was Adrian Sprott. Barry said it was 87, 86, 87. Who hang with it? And I still remember that boy's name, because it was a generational result for me at that point. Going, what do you mean? They've been beat off Hamilton Accies. Well, what's that? And yesterday, you get that same kind of feel yesterday as well. It's no nice. I remember we got beat off Morton in the League Cup.
Yes.
Luigi Imrie.
Yeah.
And that night, I think we had something like about 34, 35 shots on goal and stuff like that. And as soon as Imrie scored, I remember turning my pal going, that's us it. Because you just knew at that point that like everything had just went against you. You're going, oh, that's that. Hey, this is just not going to be your night. But yesterday was funny. If somebody would have told me at like 5 o'clock on the 2nd of January, was it the 2nd of January or the 3rd of January, that you're going to have a Sunday night where you're going to completely laugh until your bladder nearly explodes and you pee yourself like for about 3 hours solid. It is an age thing, eh? I would have went, I'll take that. I'll take it every day of the week. No, and they even missed the gifted penalty. They even missed the corrupt penalty that they were actually awarded, and it was funny. And they missed it, and it's their captain, who's a Hall of Famer, who missed it. And it was funny. It was funny. Now the SFL just need to give us a tough away tie of the night. Well, so we're going to Tynecastle, Easter Road, or Pittodrie. That's the three that we're going to in the quarter-final.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the thing is, we are going to be focusing on it because there is the likelihood, there is a good chance that we'll be facing the team. Is that your arm on the left-hand side, the way you're sitting there? It could well be.
It looks like that.
There is a chance that we'll be facing Queen's Park in the next round. Something of a fairy tale. But yeah, it does. It puts into kind of context, Acsom, that game at the beginning of the year, where we turned up but didn't turn up, if you know what I mean. And we were all kind of left a bit speechless at the poor performance that Celtic put in that day, because we're looking at it going, we don't think they're any great shakes, but we're a lot better than that. We were a lot better than what we showed that day. But that basically is all they're going to have this season, is that victory at the new year.
I think that's what makes it even more funnier and even such a bigger deal, what happened yesterday, because that is all we had left to play for domestically. You know, the league's done. League Cup, we beat them in that as well. And after the Derby game at the New Year, all you've heard about is how, you know, Clement's got Rodgers' number now, and there's not that big a gap. And, you know, that's them thinking the last couple of games they've been the better team, even though I disagree with that in terms of the cup final. But that's all the chat, and the last few weeks they've been saying, oh, they're improving. So for them to put a performance like that and to have a defeat like that yesterday with everything that's riding on it and their last chance of a trophy this season, yeah, it speaks a lot. And that's why, as Kev says, that's generational. You know, people spoke about the Aberdeen Darvel game a couple of years back. But yeah, in terms of the significance of that, in terms of the meltdown, the humiliation, the embarrassment, that's up there as well, and I honestly can't wait to kind of see what the media have all got to say about it. It's up there with what our Cali, Super Cali go ballistic back in, what was that, 99?
That was the day, believe it or not, that Declan McConville was born, Acsom.
Wow. Makes me feel old.
Yep, and it's taken this long for us to kind of airbrush the headline out the history books because, as Kev says, it's been reclaimed.
So it would have been Declan's birthday yesterday then.
Happy birthday, Declan. That's not a bad luck.
25 years ago.
No.
Was it on the same day, Kev?
I don't think so. It would have been the same day. That was a January fixture, wasn't it?
Kev, you should know. Remember, you got the free pies and the boozer.
Was Declan born on the game it was a band that didn't happen?
No, he was born the night we got beat 3-1.
So that was yesterday.
Was it? That's incredible, that, isn't it?
Oh, was it actually bang on that same day? I didn't know that.
It was bang on. That's why it was posted on a certain message board yesterday morning. So it would have been Declan's birthday yesterday.
It was Declan's birthday yesterday because I've got him on Instagram and it was I seen that it's his birthday yesterday. So there you go.
Declan doesn't need an excuse to go out whining and dining, Acsom. He will be at some hostelry somewhere in Europe, probably rubbing shoulders with somebody famous. But that's our deck.
But it shows you, right? Our manager after the game on Saturday night was talking about this is a game that we should win. So I went in with a game plan to make sure there were certain aspects of the game we wanted to make sure were better, and we had little in-game. I can't remember what he says. He says, but I didn't want Rafe Rovers to have 6 passes. We all wanted to win the ball back before 6 passes. So we've got a manager who's gone on about, we need to. This is a game we should win, but I want our performance level to be so high that there's certain targets. It's almost there's a training game within a main game. So the manager going, Rafe Rovers are not getting 6 passes before I want the ball won back. I want to learn Jeff Lashoop how to play that full back role. So our manager's getting them going in there prepared. By the way, you should win this game, but I want your performance level to be top notch, and I'm setting targets for you during the game. And targets that you would only that's levels. That is complete and utterly different levels.
Absolutely, Kev.
And I think Clement's a decent manager. I really do, and I didn't want them to be. I didn't want him to be there for much longer. But you can't survive that. Well, that is one thing that you can't survive. That's up there with Tony Mowbray 4-0, John Barnes. That's the point of no return.
The thing is,
Asim, I'll let you come in on this one because I got my own view on that. Because I agree with Kevin's sentiment. I agree that a result like that for a Celtic or a Rangers manager should and normally would result in this sack. What's your take on it, Asim?
It should, but they can't afford to, and I think he knows that, and that's why he constantly comes out with excuses after excuses. He knows he's not going to get the punt. Even yesterday, they were asking him about it. Is it for any Rangers manager to go trophyless? Is that usually enough of a reason for them to get the sack? And he's like, well, there's been plenty of times before that's happened. I was like, well, at least you know it. You accept failure. But even yesterday, we had 33 shots. It's just excuses. I don't think he's ever, and honestly, I genuinely mean this, came out after a defeat and just admitted that they got beat by a team that were better on the day or whatever it may be. There's always an excuse with him. Is he a good coach, Kev? Look, I don't know.
I think he's a decent coach.
Is that based on the European stuff or just
based on the European stuff? Based on his European stuff, he can organise a team that's stronger in the sum of its parts. He can really organise a team that's stronger in the sum of its parts. I
don't think he's suited. I don't think he's suited to a team that demands to win things. So yeah, maybe he is suited for Rangers then. But I think Rangers in terms of domestically, I don't think are going to win anything under it. I don't think they're going to go much further in Europe either. I think for me, I think he maybe has some kind of attributes, but the excuses he comes out with, he's lost a lot of kind of favour with fans. Some of his decision making in game, he gets stick for as well. So for me personally, I wouldn't mind if he sticks around. And I think because what we see is this constant cycle with them, where they have a good few performances and then they collapse again. And I think as long as that goes on, they're not going to really progress under them. And like I said at the start, they've just not got the money to do so, or the money to strengthen the team. So that's the thing. That's the stark reality of all this, and that's why the meltdown is so funny. I think they realise this isn't getting any better.
I'm going to clarify what I actually mean. I think he's a good coach, right? But we done them last season by getting in his head. I think there's a mentality problem. There's a mentality problem, but he's a decent enough coach. But there's a mentality problem. I'm surprised at the final whistle yesterday. Didn't blame them losing the first goal, the disallowed goal in the Scottish Cup final? He keeps on going back and back. I think there's a mentality problem that comes for him.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Kevin. He's up against a mentality monster, as you call Brendan Rodgers, Kev. You know, I think the mentality thing is like celebrating 3-3 draws, winning a cup game last year and going up to the crowd and all that. I think, you know, when Celtic don't play well, Brendan Rodgers is so disappointed. He almost takes it personally, and it's like he'll do everything he needs to do to put it right. And every so often, normally in cycles, that kind of thing hits you, it bites you in the backside. And you look at our manager and you say, well, you kind of trust he's going to sort this out. He knows where the weak links are, and if it's a mentality issue, you won't play for him. Whereas, as Acsom quite rightly says, you're basically dealing with the cards that you've been dealt with. You're playing with the cards you've been dealt with. Just to go on the tagline here, Queens, Jokers and Aces. Celtic hold all the aces today. Let's listen to your comments. We appreciate you won't want us to laugh at Rangers for the entirety of the 60 minutes. We do have probably keep that backdrop up. That is your ultimate Acsom. But we will be talking about Celtic's performance at the weekend, and we'll be looking ahead to Bayern Munich as well. Johnny Ryan comes in to keep the card playing theme going. Tina Turner has left the building. Simply the jest. Yes, I like that. And Donny Tiny Hands also. Only Kanye West had a bigger meltdown than Sevco over the weekend. Fantastic. Our other friend, Adam Montgomery. And as far as I understand, Barry, there's a few Celtic-minded players in that Queen's Park team as well. They were enjoying it in the dressing room. Acsom, Monty loves your top. Absolutely. Yes. Monty, there we go. And the underwater cabbage salesman is a fan as well, probably of your backdrop. AR, break ranks for the day. Okay, if you really insist, AR, we will break ranks. We will talk about teams we are not facing this week. And Tony C, JP, half a chat with. Oh, we had a chat at Bad at the Derby game. I think we were dumbfounded after that one. Yes, we were, Tony. This just hits it home even more. How did they beat us? Listen, I'm still at a loss as to how they did that. But I'll tell you what it did do. It gave our mentality monster a bite, and he's come back from it, I think. Break ranks, we have done. Is it rude still to be laughing? Absolutely not. Get the popcorn ready, says Barry. And then James Kirwan says, Maeda, through the middle. Let's start talking about the hoops. Maeda, the other set of hoops. Through the middle, great striker, calm and clinical in his 3 finishes. Pity he misses a game on Wednesday. Casper Schlup, trusty. CCV, Johnston, Hattati, McGregor, Engels, Kuhn, Ida and Jota. We'll be looking at predicted 11s, but let's talk about the game, and we've got to start off with that man, Dyson. He's now scored 50 goals for Celtic. He does that in style with a hat-trick, scored another goal that was chopped off, and you're looking at him, Acsom, and you're thinking to yourself, he, for me, was the least likely of Celtic's trio of Japanese imports to become the hero, yet he's the hero. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, what an iconic season he's having. You know, you look at even going back to that cup final, it was Maeda who scored in the game and then gets that winning penalty in his celebrations.
Yeah.
And he scored big Champions League goals. He's just so pivotal right now to us, and it's a real shame because he deserves to be on that stage on Wednesday night. You know, everything he's touching right now turns to gold, whether it's shots, assists, goals. He's brilliant, and honestly, he's going to be a huge miss. But as you say, 50 goals, he'll go on to at least hit 30 this season. I think he's on 20 now. I think he can easily hit the 30 mark. And just an absolute hero, you know, a true great. You can see it. He loves being here. And we just, you know, Celtic fans absolutely adore him. And he's made the loss of Kyogo, you know, a lot easier with how he's just carried on the mantle and just he's getting better each week. His finishing this season, that was one of the things before. You could not rely on Dyson Maeda, but you absolutely can now. He's clinical. Whatever position you put him in, he's one of our best players. So a huge loss on Wednesday, but yeah, just enjoying watching him at the moment.
That 30-goal thing, you look at that, you think to yourself, we spoke about it last week, you almost take it for granted that a Celtic striker will come in and score that kind of level of goals in a season. I mean, Scott McDonald, a player with Motherwell who was a decent enough player, obviously he put us to the sword. He came in and scored 32 goals for Celtic. And we've done that in the past. We've taken guys that are maybe even unfancied, domestic players, put them in a Celtic side. We create so many chances. But I was just looking at that, Acsom, and I was quite surprised, actually, that in the last decade, there has only been 3 players that has scored 30 or more goals in a season for Celtic. And the 3 players are Lee Griffiths, who scored 40 in 2015-16, Moussa Dembele, who scored 32 the following season, and then Kyogo, a couple of seasons ago, scored 34. So he's well on his way to that, Kev. I mean, and as Acsom says, what an iconic season it is, and it's turning out to be.
He's the main man now, eh? He had a wee dip, like the majority of the team, but he's came back firing, especially the last couple of games as well. I mean, he does well through the middle. I think I'm coming off the wing as well. I understand where Rodgers is coming from, saying I like him out there because he's work rate, where he can press on the blind side and stuff like that. But you look at him through the middle as well. He's just got that pace. I like him through the middle because sometimes I think he's got less time to think with the stuff that's happening in front of him. Whereas out wide, sometimes you get the ball and you have to have that wee bit. He's more an instinct player for me. He hasn't got like the skills of a Jota or a Kuhn to play out wide. He does a great job for a Brendan Rodgers Celtic out wide, but I think he's got more a skill set for going through the middle where chances will get presented to him and he's quicker fought. I just think, I mean, it was great to see his wee kids on the park as well when they're coming out with the team and that, and fair play to the Raith Rovers players as well for high-fiving them on the way back. He seems to enjoy it here. He seems to be a bit of a character. He seems to be, like, his interviews seem to be a wee bit of a character as well, and you get that impression that he's maybe quite a funny guy. Like, and he knows he knows that he's funny and he can get away with. I mean, Jota was in stitches the other week in that interview. He's a massive loss. He was a massive loss at Villa Park, and he'll be a massive loss tomorrow night. I just think we should just put him in a wig and just say he's Jota.
Well, we've seen a few different incarnations. Maeda. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's Wednesday night this week, Tuesday night next week. Am I right? Is that the way it goes? So I'm looking at Dyson Maeda, and Liam Carrigan's been banging on about the fact that he's far more effective through the middle. It's happened through necessity rather really than choice, and through the middle he plays. I agree with you, Kev. I think he's an instinctive player. And when a chance falls at his feet, it's in the net before he gets a chance to think about it. Whereas down that wing, often, doubting himself, sometimes the cross goes awry. But then what also happens is you then develop under a particular manager. And, some players will not be suited to what Brendan does. But Maeda certainly has been. Is he the most improved player under Brendan Rodgers, in your view? Because O'Reilly was very much last season, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I do think in terms of the contributions we're getting from Maeda, because there was points last season where Maeda was probably getting stick and people were questioning his position in the team as well. But for him now to produce the performances, the goals, the assists that he's putting in, week out, this last week alone, I'm pretty sure what he scored and assisted 2 at Motherwell, and then the midweek game. What was it, 6-0? I'm sure again he was contributing about three of the goals, and then at the weekend there. So his numbers are phenomenal. But that's the thing with him. It's not just the numbers you're getting. It's his attitude, his pressing, his energy. He's infectious. He must be an absolute dream to play with. So as Kev says, it's a monumental loss, especially in this kind of game, because of the type of team that we're playing against. It would have been ideal to have him there. But, hopefully we can somehow keep in the tie and make sure that Maeda can come and impact the second leg. But yeah, he's a shoe-in for me for player of the season now. If he carries on this consistency, he's, it was between him and Kuhn for a while, and it looked like Kuhn for the first half of the season. But Maeda's just taken it on a whole new level some of his finishes, like that first one on Saturday, left foot, like you say, instinctive, Kev. It's one of those you don't have to think about it. Just a first time left foot in the corner, and he's got so much better at that kind of thing, which, as you say, Paul John, it's testament to the manager as well, who obviously he prides himself on that, and I think that is one of Rodgers' real strengths. He picks certain players, and he'll find wee things that they can improve. Matt O'Reilly got him a lot more goals and assists, completely different player in the third season, sorry, and same with Maeda now. So brilliant to see, and I don't know how long we've got him tied down for, but whatever it is, we should be trying to work on that again.
Yeah, May 27. I had a look at that this morning as well, Acsom. It was my thoughts entirely, May 27. But even though you've got that cushion a couple of years on his deal, Kev, you're looking at Maeda and you're looking to tie him down. Now, the reason I say that, and the reason that it's different from a player like Taylor, who's played really well for 6 seasons and consistently, is you just expect big offers to come in for a player like Maeda because of the type of form he's shown, Kev. And he is doing it at Champions League level and may continue to do that at Champions League level this season. Even with 2.5 years to run, you try and tie him down, don't you?
You try to, but again, there's a lot of... I didn't want to sound really negative here, but there's things going on in the background that you don't know. You didn't ken what his agent's working on. You do not know what the club are seeing in that. And I mean, he's got that deal to 2027. So you've got this summer. Then if you would want talks to begin in the next year or so for a new contract, but as we all know, our club doesn't do things like that very, very quickly. But you would want them to tie it down, but again, it's up to the player.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line. There is a Scottish league factor here. There is a massive Scottish league factor here, and by the time he gets to 2027, that will be 4, maybe 5 years.
Yeah,
the thing with he's been here,
thing with Maeda as well, though, is he's already part of the Japanese national team squad. So that's not an issue for him. Also, if you think about it, throughout his time here, has he ever been linked away? Now, again, you then add that you then think maybe that's because his agent knows he's happy here. A lot of the time when you get players being linked away, it's because the agents are working and stuff. There's got to be a reason why Maeda, throughout his time, hasn't been linked away at all. It's because he's pretty content here. He's got a young family who, by all accounts, he's a very family man. They're happy. He seems happy. I don't think he's in a rush to go now. I know we've said this before about certain players, but I do think there's something in the fact that he never gets linked away. It's probably because he's not angling for one, so he's not on the phone to his agent saying, "Look, let's see who's out there." Otherwise, you'd get wee murmurings, especially with this kind of form. So that's the kind of feeling I get with Dyson. That's different maybe to the likes of Rio Hatate and obviously Kyogo in the last year since the agency change. Things can change quickly, but at the moment it doesn't seem like Dyson is any hurry to try and test out another league or anything.
And it's great to hear. Now, Joe Hamilton, you're in on the YouTube. Brendan set a trap to keep Big Phil in the job. Genius. Yes, and John Taggart comes in to say, isn't it great that the oldest team smashed the newest team? I had to bring that up. Seen that a few times last night on the socials. We're going to get Patrick to Yang. Youngsters Paradise, says Patrick Kerrigan. We're going to get to Yang. We'll get to him. And Shab says, Jota can't play Wednesday, neither can Schlupp. Well, we'll be asking the guys what the predicted 11 is, because at least one of them, they can. At least one of them will be in my team.
I think he means he doesn't want either.
He doesn't want them out.
All right.
Both of them have been added to the squad. Obviously, we've had 3 people in the squad who have left, being Baye, Kyogo, and Palma. Almost called them Parma. They're Palma, and they've been replaced by Schlupp and Jota and Johnny Kenny. So that's been the changes of the squad. Typhoon McFlustery, that's a new one. Tavernier, 500 appearances, 2 trophies. Scott Bain, 67 appearances, 13 trophies. And he always remembers the cards for the carpool as well, does Bainzo. And John Watt says, welfare check for McCoy. I heard he wasn't answering his phone this morning. Danny boy, shut up about them. We have a very important game on Wednesday. Danny, Come on, just soak it up, drink it up. And Barry O'Sullivan, 25-year deal for Maeda. Absolutely right. There was 3 guys at the weekend I was looking at. I was looking at Sinisalo making his debut for Celtic, Schlupp making his first start for Celtic, and Murray, interestingly enough, making his first domestic start. Acsom, how did the 3 of those guys play in your view?
Fine, but like hard to kind of read too much into it, given they had literally nothing to do all game, you know. But steady, and I thought Schlupp looked and Murray looked good on the ball, quick with their passing. Schlupp got involved a lot, played very inverted, which was interesting to see. I don't know if that's what he's traditionally does or did when he was at Palace or Leicester. I thought he was more of a traditional left back and kind of kept the line, but he was just obviously transitioning into how Celtic play at the moment, and he was getting involved a lot in the midfield and looks very steady on the ball, and hopefully he'll kind of work on his kind of physicality and game sharpness as time goes on. Can you hear me?
Aye.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello? Sorry,
I can hear you, mate.
We can hear you.
The screen froze on me, so I don't know if it was my connection there. But yeah, I thought they all looked fine. Sinisalo as well didn't have anything to do other than I think one kind of shot in the first half and dealt with that okay. So hard to really kind of read too much into their performances, obviously against that level of opposition. But great to see Sinisalo get his debut and experience Celtic Park. And yeah, the 3 of them will be better for it, and I think Schlupp will be utilised a lot more in the second half of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing with Sinisalo, you're right. You know, he wasn't tested, but it's games like that, even if Schmeichel didn't have an injury, that you would hope he would get some game time, Kev. I found it interesting. Murray's had a few appearances. Every single one of them has been in the Champions League, either for a qualifier or a group stage game. But he did make his domestic debut. I was impressed with him. He looks really assured. I think there was something interesting said about Murray after the Villa game, and Rodgers kind of, half jokingly said, it's all right to look laid back, but you can't be laid back. He's obviously got that gait about him, Kev. He looks really relaxed, doesn't he? Nothing's going to faze him. That's good, but obviously he was caught out against Villa. He's been playing this level of team when he was at Queen's Park, and he did not look out of place at all.
No, at Villa he was caught by the pace of the game. He was that's all it was. He wasn't expecting the Aston Villa guy to be that quick, and he struggled to adjust his body to actually play the ball. He's a unit. He kept the ball well on Saturday, but as you say, he's been used to playing at this level against Raith Rovers and teams of Championship level. I think he's got the pace. Rodgers says something really, really interesting. I think that's his first game at Celtic Park. So Rodgers says that's Dan Murray's first game at Celtic Park.
He played against Midfield, but there was no fans there, was there?
Right, okay.
It was about 8,000. I think that was the very first game back.
Oh, good point. Aye, but he came on as a sub. Remember, Beaton get sent off that day.
Yeah.
So
and he played the second leg in Denmark. But yeah, it seems like a lot of his
games have been away from home. So Rodgers says he was getting used to the park. Again, it's just taking that
the geography of the pitch, Kev. He was getting used to the geography
of the pitch.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's the same with Sinisalo as well. Now that's the monkey off his back. He's made his debut. That's a big pressure. Same with Schlupp as well. Big pressure off him. Dane Murray's had his first start at Celtic Park. Well, there we go. We'll call it that. His first start at Celtic Park. Got a clean sheet, and he looked quite comfortable. We couldn't ask for much more. And I thought we were professional, really professional, and the 3 guys that came in added to that professionalism, and that's all you can ask on these potential games, the potential banana skins of these games. That's all you can ask for, that they do their job, and I think they've done their job.
Yeah, they did. And, it looked like good business bringing Sinisalo in at the age that he was at, bringing in Schmeichel to help him along. Looks like a perfect plan. Not quite sure that was the plan, but it'd be good to see him getting a few games between now and the end of the season as well, because, goalies have to, they need to taste that action. You've seen our Benzo coming in against Sligo Rovers, Acsom, and he was murder. He was murder. He hadn't played. All he does is turn up for the trophies and the medals. Peter McGlone, we're going to get to Youngsters Paradise, Peter. It was great to see Yang play well and make a real impact. And just to prove that we bring up other comments, not just YouTube comments, Fake Zones on the Twitch, giving us a few wee emojis. Nice one, right. Let's talk about Yang then, because I read a comment last night underneath the YouTube video, the post-match video, which said that look at the ego of the presenter of Acsom, failing to admit he got it wrong about Yang. Right. Okay, right. No. It was nothing to do with ego. Yang, before I go any further, well done at the weekend. He done really well. What a great finish from a tremendous, delicious cross by Tony Ralston. Great finish, right? And he got 2 assists. Fantastic. But come on, let's look at it, right? They're playing Wraith Rovers of the Championship, not even a good Championship side. And in total, he's now made 52 appearances for Celtic, scoring 3 goals with 6 assists, right? So a third of his goals and assists have come against Championship sides, and he creates a goal or an assist every 2.5 games, Acsom. Not convinced yet. Do that on a consistent basis against better opposition, and I'll change my mind.
Yeah, the key in there is consistency. You have to back it up. Like, we need to see him do that 2-3 games in a row. You know, I remember there was a game last year against Dundee. I think it was 7-0 at home. He was brilliant, and he was looking really good and sharp, and then he got sent off the following game at Tynecastle, wrongly in my opinion, but that kind of derailed him again. I think there's obviously something there, right? I know that doesn't mean much, but I feel like he's got ability to beat a man. He's got a bit of liveliness, but it's his end product, and that's again where we speak about maybe Rodgers feels he is someone that he can work with and improve, or just we've obviously not been able to get enough other numbers to kind of give him a loan deal or something like that where he can play week in, week out. But I didn't think he was particularly good first half. If I'm honest, I don't think a lot was coming off for him. And then obviously got the assist right on half time, and then went on to have a good second half. So yeah, that's good. And sometimes it takes moments, whether it's against Wraith or whoever. But he needs to back it up. He needs to then do it next time when we're maybe struggling in a game, you know, and that's where you need him to show he can be the man that can cause a breakthrough or break a team down. I remember the game at Tannadice where he started, and we struggled that game, you know, finished 0-0, but that's the kind of game where he needs to make his mark. You've seen straight away the difference when Jota's came back the last couple of weeks, goals and assists straight away. That's what we need from Yang now. So the chances are he's going to come on Wednesday. What an opportunity again for him to show that he can do something on a more regular basis. So look, good. Without James Forrest at the moment, we're going to need Yang a bit more, and if that does his confidence good, then that's going to be helpful for us.
The point made by Acsom there, Kev, is true. He will play a part on Wednesday night because of the fact that obviously Maeda's missing. Ida's going to start the game. Jota, and the cat was let out the bag when Brendan was speaking to Charlie Mulgrew at the weekend. Jota will be playing on Wednesday night. So your first choice backup is Yang, and you would expect at some point during the game he will come on. I fully agree with Acsom. I want every Celtic player to do well, absolutely, but some of them won't, and that's just the reality of it. But he needs to do it on a consistent basis. He needs to do it in the bread and butter games, Kev. Never mind the big games. You know, the games against Motherwell and St Mirren and Ross County, as one of the commenters says here. He needs to do that, and he needs to do it consistently, because then you face a game against Rangers that's must win. Then you face a game against Bayern Munich that could be neck and neck 60, 65 minutes into the game at home, and we need to make a change. And at that point, you've got to step up. You can't be a passenger. You've got to do your defensive duties. Like, obviously, the wingers were brilliant at that against Atalanta away. I don't think Yang's there yet, but he's going to play a part on Wednesday night.
What was it? George Michael says, I'm your Yang. You're right. Everything that you say there is right. I mean, our own manager actually speaks about him like a puppy with 3 legs. Bless him. Bless him. He works hard, bless him. Look, he played well on Saturday night, but as everybody's quite rightly pointed out, there's plenty of other games where he's had the opportunity for him to actually step up and he hasn't done it. And he maybe needs more games. He maybe needs to go out on loan. He maybe needs to get that consistency somewhere else. But he's had enough chances with Celtic to get that consistency. As you say, he's going to come on Wednesday night at one point. He's going to need to come on at Wednesday night. And that's a week. That's a weak spot. And if he wasn't there, if James Forrest was available, it's James Forrest will be coming on. Let's know. There is a pecking order, and we're at the bottom of that pecking order. We're at the bottom of that pecking order, and Yang is at the wingers that are fit and available. Yang's at the bottom of it, and that one. That's not going to change. That's not going to change. Truthfully.
You mentioned mentality earlier, Kev. You mentioned the mentality of, a coach that you think's a good coach without the mentality. Brendan Rodgers has shown that he will work with a player who's got the mentality, even if they don't have the ability. Because I actually think Palmer has got technical ability, but he clearly didn't have the mentality, which is why he's not at the football club. Yang is clearly shown, Acsom, to Brendan Rodgers, that he does have a mentality to play in his team. It's just obviously trying to get that flow and that consistency to his performances. Now, Sloop, we'll just call you Sloop, mofos. I also slagged Yang, and I take it back after Saturday. Good on you. McLaughlin P. Yang, at the very least, really needs to start doing that against St Mirren, Ross County and Motherwell's. McLaughlin P, I nicked your comment before I brought it up. Apologies. At Celtic Park more consistently. And we've got Mickey Boy, 80 Sloop, seemed to play every position except left back. I was impressed with that, though, because the rigidness required to play left back wasn't really there against Wraith Rovers. He had that license to roam, didn't he, Acsom? And if you look at some of the show reels of him playing for Leicester and playing for Crystal Palace, a lot of it is offensive. He's very good going forward. So I like the fact that he found himself in positions that were offensive positions, demanding the ball, as Kev said earlier on. And I was impressed as far as it goes. He doesn't start for me on Wednesday night, but he did well. And you're looking at him on the bench, you're thinking, right, regarding his position, he can play on the left in midfield. He can even play centre forward if required. Now, Tony Cassidy bursts our bubble. It's been nice and positive right up until the 42nd minute, Tony boy. 5-0 for Bayern. Forget about it. Right, let's talk about Bayern. Let's talk about our favourite ex-Bayern Munich and Celtic and Aston Villa player, Kevin Alan Rambo McInally. He took a shine to you, didn't he? And the story is, and it's true, Kev's my witness. So we blagged AAA passes to this big football tournament in Glasgow, right? It was like one of these kind of like old boys, was it Soccer Sevens or something? Something like that. And Scotland had a team, it was on international teams, and then there was a rest of the world team. And McInally was doing the punditry for whatever broadcaster was covering it. We had the AAA passes. Me and Kev absolutely blagged it. We're walking about with nothing more than the mobile phones that we've probably still got, Kev. We had no cameras, no dictaphones, and we were looking at all these other people who had managed to get into the AAA.
All these young influencers, all these young YouTubers with three-quarter length trousers and no socks and that on, and
they all had all the gear. They had all the gear, Kev. So me and Kev decided to go a wee bit kind of rogue and just do it with iPhones, and we did all right, Kev. We got interviews with Niall Quinn, Owen Coyle, the aforementioned, various other players, and there was Big Rambo. So he agreed to an interview. So we sit down on the couch with him, and Kevin's calling him Rambo. Like, he's gone, right, so Rambo, what we're going to do, we're going to do this, Rambo, right? And I said, Kev, it's Alan McInally, can't I call him Rambo? And Big McInally goes, no, I insist, call me Rambo. He then told us, bizarrely, right, and this was the January, Kev, he then told us that Brendan Rodgers was going to Leicester. We were like, shut up. I tell you, Brendan Rodgers was going to, and it hadn't broken anywhere, Kev. And we were scared to mention it on the podcast in case people were saying, they're going for the sensationalist, clickbait headlines and all this kind of stuff. Lo and behold, Big Rambo knew.
That was the start of December, and had left by the following February.
So 2 months, definitely.
Wow.
Bayern Munich, let's talk about how we're going to line up for this one, Acsom. What's your take on it?
I think it'll be the lineup everyone kind of expects. I don't think there's going to be a lot of shocks with the starting lineup. Schmeichel should be fine again, I think, for it. I don't think there was a major concern with him. And then Johnston, Carter-Vickers, Trusty and Taylor at left back. I don't know if there's been an update on Bernardo's injury, but I don't think he was going to start anyway. I think it will be the midfield trio that he tends to go with for the big games, which is Hatate, Engels and McGregor. And then wide we'll see Kuhn and Jota either side of Maeda. So it's a strong starting lineup. And I can't see any kind of changes in that. What do you guys think? I think it's pretty set.
I do think we've got a strong starting 11. Absolutely, Acsom. And the concern starts to creep in when you're looking at the bench. You know, that's the big thing, because there's a good point here, and it sounds kind of simplistic, but Brendan Rodgers touched on it. And he touched on, you're looking at those brilliant performances this season where we've been an attacking force. And then you look at the Atalanta. And for certain parts of the Villa game, I know we conceded 4, but in terms of, you know, a defensive performance and trying to get that within the same game. Now, that sounds easy, right? But it's obviously going to be a wee bit more difficult than that. And Green Machine says Celtic will go for the jugular v Bayern. In the first half, we need to score first and stop the Germans getting a hold of the game. 1-0 will do to give them something to hang on to. I'm confident, Kev, that with the lineup Acsom has suggested there, I'm confident that we will score on Wednesday night. I really am. Now, I spoke about some kind of approach that Jock Stein had back in the day, where playing European games in advance of which he would set up friendly games against lower league opposition in Scotland, and he would play a full-strength team, and we would win the games like 6-0, 7-0, and it was just to get into that rhythm of scoring goals, right? That momentum is so important. And then you would go out there and play a top-class European side, and it worked. It sounds simple. Bayern Munich, I do think we're going to score on Wednesday night, Kev, but it's all about whether or not we're able to shut the back door.
That's going to be extremely difficult. I think my usual starting point, I was actually just having a look at how many games Rambo, how many games Rambo actually played for Bayern Munich. And he played 40 games in 4 seasons, scoring 10 goals. But all his 10 goals came in one season. That was the season he scored 18 goals for Aston Villa, moved to Bayern, scored 10 goals in the Bundesliga and won a Bundesliga title. Must be one of the very few Celtic players to have a Bundesliga title and a Scottish Premiership title. You have Lambert would have had one. I'll need to actually think about that. Anyway, Rambo seems to have had a great period for about 3 seasons, and his career sort of hang with it. European nights, I always start with, especially against the league teams, let's not get humped. That's my starting off point. Let's just go out there and perform. Then as we get closer and closer to the game, and go, as long as we're in it and we're competitive, and as you say, maybe score first and see how it goes. And it'll be difficult for us to actually shut the, as you say, no lose a goal. They've got power up front. We'll give Harry Kane dog's abuse, and it's very unlikely that he will score, because that's what Harry Kane does. And you just want to be competitive and make sure we're still in the game going into the second leg. That's the main thing. I think what we've seen this weekend with Plymouth and Queen's Park as well. Anything can happen in football, and shocks happen in football more regularly than what they do in any other sport, because of the amount of variables that are in football. He just didn't want not to turn up like we done in Dortmund. We've played 2 German teams already this season. We've got battered off Dortmund, then we battered Leipzig. So maybe just the mere Leipzig Celtic turn up, and we'll see what happens. But even though Bayern are a class above Leipzig, I just didn't want to be embarrassed, especially not at him. I would love it if we leave that Bayern Munich game and we're still unbeaten in the Champions League at home this season. Mm-hmm. That's magnificent. That'll be brilliant for me. That's the kind of result that I'm looking for. That's still be unbeaten at Celtic Park by the time we get to 10 o'clock on Wednesday night.
Like a 2-2. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know what, Acsom, right? We are calling it as we see it. We all know that there's a gulf. We know that. There's a massive gulf, right? And anything can happen. And we've seen it this season. We went to Borussia Dortmund and they absolutely tanked us. We went to Atalanta, another quality side, and they didn't. So it's about trying to find a middle ground whereby we don't take a tanking, because I mean Brendan Rodgers would have taken that personally, like we said at the top of the show. But also, as Kev says, it's like, you leave that game and you hope that you're taking something into the return leg, old school two-legged affair. And why be there if you don't think you're going to get something? This is the thing. Why be in the tournament, and why always look to progress if you don't think you can take something from the game?
What I will
And
say
the thing
before,
is, this current.
sorry, Asim.
Sorry, you go, Kev.
What I will say, people look at the Feyenoord result. Again, you pointed out, Paul, the Feyenoord result, the 3-0 against Bayern. 3-0 completely flattered Feyenoord. Completely flattered Feyenoord. Bayern had tons of chances in that game and missed them. But Feyenoord absolutely hammered them on the break.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely hammered them on the break. And this is where we'll miss Maeda.
Well, you're right, but we also need Kuhn to click back into the kind of top gear that we've seen. I'm not saying he's losing form. I'm not getting into that. But I think that there was a certain moment where he was being spoken about in the same kind of tones as Maeda is at the moment. He was a star man. Everything was coming through Kuhn. We need him to get back up to that. I'm not going to say there's a personal thing there, but it must be on his mind. He was an ex-Bayern Munich player. He was on the books, and he's been obviously at a few big clubs previously, and it's not worked out. Something to prove. We thought that against Dortmund, him and Engels, going back to the Bundesliga, it didn't work out that night. But Kuhn, I think, needs to step up, because Jota, let's not forget, Jota's not 100% match sharp at the minute.
Yeah, and if you remember the Leipzig game, that's where Kuhn had that kind of breakout moment.
Yeah.
And then he was getting spoke about in terms of the German national side. So I think he'll be raring to go again in front of in front of the watching crowd. There'll be a lot of eyes on this game in Germany as well, obviously, and like Bayern of München, as Rambo likes to call them. That's my biggest memory of Alan McInally. Only an excuse. But yeah, they leak a lot of goals. Oh, I say a lot of goals, but they're definitely defensively not as sound as maybe previous versions of Bayern Munich teams. They lost 3 goals last week at home to Holstein, I think they were called. Obviously, the Feyenoord game, which you've mentioned, Kev, yeah, okay, it maybe flattered Feyenoord, but still 3 goals to concede to a Feyenoord side. They lost 4 in against Barcelona. They lost away at Villa. So away from home, they've struggled this season, especially in Europe. They're in the playoff round for a reason. They've not been fully at it. But it's going forward. You look at the attacking options they've got: Sané, Musiala, Olise, and then obviously Kane. That's a lethal front four, pacey, a bit of everything. So we're going to have to expect that Bayern are going to have a lot of the ball. They're probably going to dominate a lot of the game. But I think it might suit into the style of play that we have right now, which is pace on the counter attack. That's why Maeda is going to be such a huge loss. But I think we will have to play smart. We're going to have to work really hard off the ball, and we're going to have to be clinical for any chances we do get. But it's a brilliant opportunity. And anytime I've watched Bayern in the last couple of seasons in the Champions League, they always look like they can leak a goal. Upamecano at the back, and Kim. Yeah, they're not the most solid defensively, I feel. But Company's got them playing this year in quite a direct fashion. So I think there's going to be goals. And as Cave says, you just want to end the night still in the tie. And that, whatever that may be, you just don't want to be leaving that game on Wednesday and thinking that's it, done. If we can put in a great performance and we still lose maybe by a goal or a high scoring draw, we're still in it. But I honestly wouldn't even rule us out, taking the lead and actually coming out with a shock. It could happen. We've seen it before. And if ever there's a time for Celtic to do it, we've waited for this stage for over a decade now. And we've seen the shocks that have happened this weekend. I don't know. I think it could be a special night. My only concern is, come 60, 70 minutes, you're having to look at that bench. And that's where I worry that have we got the quality to come on that's going to keep that level up if we do have a good first hour or so.
Well, Harry Kane won't want Liam Scales to come on, that's for sure. And it's pointed out here that Liam Scales is a geography graduate. He's also in with a shout at him in terms of the players who have improved the most under Brendan. Liam Scales, Matt O'Reilly, Dyson Maeda. What other suggestions would you have? Throw them into the comment section and let us know. Talking about geography on the pitch, absolutely, that's what he was doing. Mickey Boy 88, he's bringing that into the lexicon or the vernacular of the football chat. And M. Young, the last thing that he brought in, remember, was Terminado. Hopefully we don't hear that again. To be fair, even Rocky looked okay on Saturday. The reason I brought this one up is I made a wee comment in amongst the old Acsom group chat in relation to Nawrocki, because I'm probably as guilty as anybody. You write these guys off, Kev. You just say, get rid of him, move him on, as if they're chess pieces. And when Nawrocki came on the park, he had a look on his face almost like he was like a rabbit in the headlights. And for a moment, I kind of thought, but I felt a bit sorry for him. Because he's come to Celtic, right? And people will always come back at you and say, but they get well paid and all this. It's a great opportunity. What a job that is. But this was just his second appearance of the season. He's basically been thrown in a scrap heap. He's still in the Champions League squad, by the way. So, you know, another guy who might have to feature in the next couple of games. Who knows how that's going to pan out. But I did feel a bit for him. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a real tendency as fans just to treat them as objects and robots, but actually these guys might be going through hell. I mean, you don't even know about it.
You don't know. You've only got like the facts as we see them, the facts that are out there, the public facts, which seems to be him and Lagerbielke played in the only cup defeat that Brendan Rodgers has had in Scotland, and none of them have been seen since, basically. There almost seems to be a trust issue. I had a laugh on Saturday when he came on because it was his birthday, and I says, I wonder if he's getting a wee birthday bonus, a wee appearance bonus here because it's his birthday. The problem is we'll be giving him quite decent wages, so I'm sure there would have been clubs interested in him. He's a Polish international, or was a Polish international, high related young Polish player. These guys are still in demand, but maybe his wages are off-putting for clubs to try and take him on loan, or what we're asking for them to take on loan, what percentages his wages to actually pay are just prohibitive. But he needs to move. He needs to move for the sake. He needs to move for the sake of his own career. There's now guys in front of him. I'm even going to put Dane Murray in front of him now in the pecking order. If there is a crisis on Wednesday night and we're down to Scales's already on the park and we lose another centre half, it's Dane Murray that's coming on, it's not Nawrocki.
Nawrocki has dropped to 5th choice, isn't
he? Shame it didn't work out for the fella, but it seemed to be that Rodgers made a very, very early call on him. And that call was not for changing.
No, and he did find himself in the Brazen Head. Mike Nawrocki getting interviewed by that German documentary team that came through to see us at Gracie's. Remember that, Kev?
So it's your fault.
Probably. Yes, aye. But
it's Acsom's fault. That's the headline. Acsom ruins young Polish superstar's career by taking him for a pint in the Brazen Head.
We get blamed for most things. I watched Bayern on Friday night, says Pete McGee. What a bore fest. The build-up play from defence was so slow, I thought the TV had frozen. And Jungle Lion says February onwards, Celtic become a different animal. Yes, they do. They come alive, as Brendan Rodgers says. Now, a couple of other wee things here. The team leak has stopped. I heard that getting spoken about over the weekend. Neil Lennon mentioned that something that kind of plagued his time at the club, and Brendan Rodgers brought it up just the other week. It's come and gone over the years, Kev, so I wouldn't like to speculate massively, but is it somebody who's left the club that was the leak? Somebody who had been there
obviously.
I'm just speculating.
I mean, they've stopped since January, so let's put 2 and 2 together and get 5, eh?
A player who was at Celtic under Neil Lennon and Brendan Rodgers, who's no longer. I'm sure you can figure it out. Anyway, I wouldn't like to speculate like that. The other thing I was going to say.
Are we not naming names then?
No names. No, absolutely not.
Rambo knows who it is. Rambo knows. Rambo will tell you.
He'll tell you, aye. And you wouldn't argue with him. Yesterday was Johan Mialby's birthday. He was 54 years of age. It was also Olivier Ncham's birthday. And on an early episode of Acsom, I asked Kevin Graham the question, Ncham or N-Trans? And I think you said N-Trans, Kev. Staying alive.
I think so.
He was 20. He was 29 yesterday.
Oh, set me free. Set me free. Well, that's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll stay alive.
Can you tell me who he plays for without checking Google? And Chan, where is he now? A player who technically, Kev, you said was technically the most gifted midfielder in Scottish football on his
And I
day.
was right.
Aye. And where is he now? Where is he now? I'll let you think about that one. And the other birthday was Strachan, 68 years of age. The reason I bring up the bold Johan, 54, doesn't look 54, when he was born, number 1 in the UK charts was My Sweet Lord by George Harrison.
Oh, what a song.
And number 4, The Supremes with Stoned Love. What a fantastic
another
tune.
great song.
What a fantastic
First
tune that
Supreme
is.
song, no somebody.
Speaking of birthdays, I've seen that.
Come on, spit it out.
I seen that Robert McConville, Declan's dad, was in the chat earlier on and confirmed it was 8th of February, so it was Saturday, which was Declan's birthday.
Saturday.
Oh, you're Dec.
So-
He's some boy, Declan. But the reason I'm saying that is we may well play My Sweet Lord by George Harrison as Johan Mjällby walks on the stage in a few Thursdays' time at Gracie's. If you want to come and join us, we're keeping the tickets as affordable as possible, 15 quid a skull. And there are tickets available underneath this video. The live events, guys, are brilliant opportunity to be in a room full of Celts. You see a lot of Acsom faces, and Gracie's cracking venue as well. So come along, join in the fun. Thanks everybody for getting involved. I've got to say it was an enjoyable one. Yes, we did speak a wee bit about the other hoops, the spiders, and Acsom did not disappoint with his backdrop. Well over 2,000. Sorry, Kev, on you go.
The comments have told us in Chams in Turkey.
He is. He's in Turkey. It's Sam Sunspor. I think that's how you call it. You name it. But there is 2,600 plus live on the live stream. I think there's a lot of happy Celtic fans out there. We'll be happy come Thursday afternoon. Who knows? But stay tuned because we'll be here for sure at 12:30. Thanks for joining us on a Celtic State of Mind.